Welcome to Mrs. Ake's Science Classroom. So today we're going to be talking about forces, balanced and unbalanced, and how that affects the motion of an object. We watched a Rube Goldberg, and we know that in the Rube Goldberg, there's a lot of objects that are still, they are not in motion. And then the person that has the little ball, they set that ball in motion. They apply force to that ball, and then that ball causes the other objects along the path to be set into motion, causes them to do something. And so we're going to talk about, first I want you to think about why. Why did that occur? And just take a minute to think about it. And then, the ball has a force applied to it, and when it hits the next object, the force of the ball causes the object to move, and that is because that the object's force is now unbalanced. And you're like, wait a minute, Mrs. Ake, if the object that is still not moving, like this ginormous tote, if it's not moving, is there force being applied to it? So that's what we're going to talk about today. This object here, this tote, it is not moving. It is very heavy. It is full of bricks. I mean, it's in the tote because I don't want my table all scratched up from the bricks. So we're trying to take care of our resources. And then this is a full jug of the water is right there. Super, super heavy. I don't know if you've ever tried to lift one. They're very, very, very heavy. Neither of these objects are currently moving at all. And that's important to think about. It's so if these objects are not moving, do they have force being applied to them? Think about that. Think about it for just a minute. So think about what you know about forces already. We know about pushes and pulls. We learned about that last year. And we watched the video on Rube Goldberg, so think about it. If you said yes, that this has force being applied to it, and that has force being applied to it, you would be correct, because this is not moving because the forces being applied to it are balanced. Same thing with our water bottle. The forces applied to our water bottle are balanced. So there's no movement on either one of these objects because they're balanced. However, sometimes, in this instance, I'm going to need these objects to move. They cannot stay on this table for an indefinite period of time. They have to be moved. So Mrs. Ake has to figure out a way to get this object that has balanced forces and is not moving and is very heavy, and that object, which also has balanced forces and is not moving, to get off my table. So what I'm going to have you, my little science geniuses, do for me today is come up with some ideas about how we can unbalance these objects, the forces, and we can unbalance the forces and we can get them to move because they're really heavy. So I need you to take out your science notebook, your investigative notebook, and I want you to get together in groups, and I want you to brainstorm. I want you to throw out some ideas. What can Mrs. Ake do to move this incredibly heavy tote of bricks? And what can Mrs. Ake possibly do to move this incredibly heavy bottle of water? What am I going to have to do? What kind of force am I going to have to apply to it? If I just barely push on it, is that going to be enough force? And if I just barely push on it and it doesn't move, why? Why is it not moving? I'm pushing. So I want you to think about it. I want you to make a claim or an explanation. That's going to be the first thing that you do. Once you guys have done some brainstorming, I want you to make that claim or explanation in your science journal, okay? I would really like for you to get the full credit for this experiment. I want you to make a claim that answers the question. The question is, what was my question? Mrs. Ake wants you to figure out how to unbalance the force on this tote and this water bottle. So that's the question. How are we going to unbalance it? And then I want that written in a well-written sentence. So that means I'm going to have a capitalized word, I'm going to have a punctuation mark, I'm going to have a subject, I'm going to have a verb, and it's all going to make sense, okay? So, and then I'm going to have you guys, we're going to experiment with it. So in this situation, you would just send me some ideas about how we would do this. So if you said Mrs. Ake should push on the tote, and that will cause the balance to be that would cause the forces to be unbalanced, then Mrs. Ake might do this. So Mrs. Ake is not getting that tote to move. So think about that. Why did I not move the tote? So what might I need to do with my push? Is my force that I'm using in my push, is that hard enough? Is it strong enough? What's happening is the force that I'm using on the tote isn't stronger than the force that's holding the tote down. That's what's happening. The force that's holding this unmoving on the table is stronger than the force that I just tried to apply to it. So I did not cause it to be unbalanced. I'm going to have to push very hard on this tote. I might even have to get another person to help me move the tote. So let's see. Okay, so to make this be unbalanced, and I'm gonna make Mr. Ake, he's gonna move this tote for me later because he has greater force, he has capability for greater force than I do. So, because he's the one that helped me put it up here. So I have to have a lot of force, a lot of outside force from my arms right there to move this tote. And I can't just use a little bit of force because that won't cause an unbalance. That will leave the tote just right where it's at, not moving, right? And did you see, what kind of force did I use? Did I use a push or did I use a pull? Think about that. I used a push. And maybe I could use a pull. There's little handles here on the side. Maybe if I pulled, I think I'll pop the handles off because they're little plastic ones. I don't want to break my tote. So also I have this. You can see I can move it. I can move it. In fact, I put it on the table. I can apply enough force to move it. Could you apply enough force to move it? And what method would you use to move it? This one has a pretty cool handle built into the jug. So I could, actually, I think you saw me using, I wasn't pushing, was I? No, I was using, so it is pretty heavy. I know, I feel like a little weakling, but look at this, I can move it. And maybe in your journal you put pull. Maybe that's what you put in your journal. So now I would like you to think about some other instances in your day-to-day life, because we apply forces to things all the time. In fact, to get ready for this classroom, Mrs. Ake had to apply, well, Mr. Ake had to apply force to this, and Mrs. Ake had to apply force to this just to get it on the table. My computer that I'm recording from, I had to apply force to move it from the living room to here. So I want you to think about some things that you've applied force to, that you have been forceful with, and you have created an unbalance in the forces on that object to move it where you wanted it. So I would really like you to think about that, and think about some times where you had, like, I had a tree stump in my yard. It was very much where it wanted to be. It did not want to come out. And I tried to pry it out. I tried to pry it out with a shovel. I tried to move it. I applied the force of the shovel to the root, and it would not come out. And so Mrs. A got very tired of the stump not being in my yard and not moving. So then Mrs. A did something big and crazy. What do you think I did? I did not blow it up. So if you thought I blew it up, I didn't. I took a chain and I wrapped it around the tree trunk, and I took the chain and I put it on the back of my bumper of my truck, and I drove really fast, and it hit really hard on the chain, and actually it jerked my truck. It made it go like that. The force that was applied to that tree stump. But the force from the truck pulling on the tree stump did force the tree stump to move. So I had to do it a couple of times because it didn't come completely out of the ground the first time, but it moved because the force that I was applying to that tree trunk was greater than the force that was holding it in place. So I want you to think about that. Think about the different ways that you apply force to an object and cause it to become unbalanced and move. That's what I want you to think about. Take that home and make that homework for your brain. Thank you for being with me, my little science geniuses. I'll see you again tomorrow.